Okay, good evening, everyone. I'm Lynn Varecchia from the Office of Admission at College of the Holy Cross in Worcester, Massachusetts. I'm delighted to welcome you to the sixth and final installment of our Fall Open House webinar series. Over the past 5 weeks, we've covered topics of our first year program, Montserrat, declaring a major, experiential learning, student life, and career development. The archived versions of all sessions are available on our website. Now, on to tonight's topic. Many of you may already know that Holy Cross is a Catholic Jesuit college. The Jesuits are an order of Catholic priests founded in 1534 by St. Ignatius of Loyola. Service and justice are key priorities of a Jesuit education. And tonight we will discuss the Jesuit value of being people for and with others. We'll begin with an overview of the work of our Office of Multicultural Education, followed by personal anecdotes from Holy Cross students. Tonight, I'm so happy to be joined by Michelle Rosa Martins, Director of Holy Cross's Office of Multicultural Education. I'm also joined by two members of the Holy Cross senior class of 2021, Darwin Contreras, who attended All Hallows High School in the Bronx, New York, and Kyle Irvin, who attended Waltham High School in Massachusetts. We're also fortunate to have with us a junior in the class of 2022, Eddie Uceda, who attended Bronx Preparatory Charter School in New York, and a sophomore in the class of 2023, Stacy Paulino. Stacy attended Classical High School in Providence, Rhode Island. I strongly encourage you to submit questions in the Q&A box, and we will answer them as we go along. You'll also see several poll questions pop up on your screen tonight if you'd like to participate. Finally, I'll mention we're having a little bit of technical difficulty with our closed captioning, but we hope to have that up and running for you shortly. First, Michelle, can you give us a brief introduction to the work of the Office of Multicultural Education, or OME?
Sure. Thank you for the introduction, Lynn. So as Lynn mentioned, my name is Michelle Rosa Martins. I'm the director in the Office of Multicultural Education. I use pronouns she, her, and hers. And today I'll be touching on the part of our office that focuses most on being for and with others. So I will screen share at this moment. Give me 1 second. Okay, so as I mentioned, I'm speaking on behalf of the Office of Multicultural Education. And in the office, I just want to give you a quick overview. We have 3 staff members. So I'm the director in the office, and you can see at the bottom of the screen in the yellow. You can talk to me about the multicultural peer educators, connecting with faculty, more about transitioning to college and connecting with alum. We have 2 assistant directors in our office. One person goes by she, her pronouns. Her name is Amy Archambault. She's the assistant director and LGBTQIA+ specialist. And so you can talk to Amy about first gen support, LGBTQIA+ support, student athlete transitions, and a bunch of other resources that are on her list of priorities. The next assistant director is Chris Campbell. He uses pronouns he, him, his. And you can talk to Chris about first gen college transitions, being an alum. He is an alum in the class of 2015, emergency funding, multicultural student organizations, and mentor programs. In our office, the focus of our work is on intersectionality. So as you see in this graphic here, focused on social identities from a whole bunch of different backgrounds. So if you have any questions about social identities and answering the question, who am I? We are the people you probably want to talk to. For today's presentation, we're going to just cover two main topics that our office focuses on, and it's how we set up the work that we do. So the first piece we'll talk about is multicultural competence. Much of what we do in the office focuses on how to build a culturally inclusive campus so everyone feels like they're welcomed and can thrive on campus. There are 3 components of this piece, right? So through our programming, we're doing culturally responsive programming to build awareness of, with students of their own cultures and other cultures, educational programs so that folks can learn more about other folks and more about themselves too. And then the last piece is practicing skill-based learning. And so building your multicultural competence is really important as we talk about being for and with others, as many of us will need to dissect who we are in order to serve communities that are outside of ourselves. The next piece I'll highlight is advocacy. Now, advocacy is a huge component of being foreign with others and a part of the Jesuit mission. And if we're thinking about how we do that, we have to be ready to disrupt the status quo. And if we talk about this notion of walking alongside folks who are poor, powerless, and may need someone to use their voice to uplift their identities or their experiences, we need to be ready to disrupt the status quo. So in OME, we focus on programming that will help bring some of these concerns to the forefront. We advocate for any person who feels like they have or have encountered discrimination in their lives. We are focused on the success and retention of underrepresented student groups on campus so that we can provide resources, but also as staff members walk alongside students along this journey at Holy Cross. And lastly, a part of being foreign with others is building the social capital of students and the folks who you're serving, and so that they become independent of the resources that you may be providing. And so in our conversation today, OME brings that to the table, right? Being foreign with others means that you need to be ready to do the work for yourself. Think about who you are, who do you want to become, and who you will be for others, and focused on the multitude of identities that you hold and how they intersect with the identities that others hold. We can't do that work without doing our own learning and programming and advocating for others at the same time. So if you're interested in learning more about that, please feel free to contact us. You can set up meetings with us and send us a direct email. But if in this time you have any questions, please feel free to drop them in the chat. Most of the conversation, I'd like to lean on the students who can give you the realistic perspective. But if there is something that I can answer for you directly, feel free to do that as well. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Michelle. I appreciate that. So I want to turn to our students now, and I'll open with a question for all four of you, which is, what does it mean to you as an individual and as a student at Holy Cross to be a person for and with others?
So I'll start it off. Hello everyone, my name is Darwin again. A little nervous, so just bear with me. But so one thing, like when this question is asked to me, that comes to mind is kind of being with and for others is kind of educating yourself and putting yourself in positions to not just rely other people to put in the work. So obviously, like, I hold certain identities, but there's certain identities that I don't hold. So one way on campus that I'm foreign with others is by attending different multicultural groups, organizations that I don't hold identity in, whether that is Asia or POW. Asia stands for Asian Students Interest in Asia, and then POW is Pioneers of Worcester, so it is the Filipino group on campus. So those are some identities that I don't hold, or Feminist Forum, another identity I don't hold. Going to these meetings and educating myself is just a really big part of being able to be an advocate for these groups. As Lynn said, I am part of the SGA and the co-officer of Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion. And for me to be better to serve these populations on campus and really be foreign with them, I have to really be educated on the issues they go through, and they speak about it all the time. So now making myself present in these spaces will really be the service to myself and them. So that's just kind of one of the ways that I do it.
Yeah. Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us tonight. And I will say, jumping off of Darwin, another thing that's really important to me to be a person for and with others is service. And at Holy Cross, there are many, many, many opportunities for service, both in the Worcester community and in our greater global community. And two of my favorite service experiences I participated in at Holy Cross are the Spring Break Immersion program through the Office of the College Chaplains. My first year at Holy Cross, I was able to spend my spring break in Chicago. And me and a group of 10 other Holy Cross students were able to work with a bunch of different organizations addressing issues like food insecurity, access to education, and restorative justice. And it was an incredible eye-opening experience. And it's something that I've continued to carry with me to these days, and still think of ways that I can address those issues at Holy Cross and in the Worcester community. And also in Worcester, I was able to work with one of the offices on campus at Holy Cross, Arts Transcending Borders. Every year they do this great Festival of the Arts at Holy Cross, and We have a bunch of visits from different high school students from different high schools in both Worcester and the Central Massachusetts community, and help them explore what it means to be creative and explore different opportunities at the collegiate level and beyond in professional lives. And so service is really important to me as a Holy Cross student and to the Holy Cross community as a whole.
Yeah, so going off of what Cal said, for me, personally, being a man foreign with others is something I hold really close to my heart. For as long as I can remember, this was something that has always shaped my identity, even before I attended Holy Cross. And I think that one huge thing, as Cal was pointing out, are like these service programs that we do have, is that we're also centered in a in a huge refugee accepting city. And it really allows me to continue to go and give back to others that come from places that don't really have anything. For me, it's important to live a life of service, because I strive off of the success of others, and me knowing that I played a small role in their overall success really grounds me and my identity. I also am a part of a multicultural student organization here on campus, as Darwin had mentioned. I'm currently the sitting co-chair for the Latin American Student Organization, and I use that position basically to continue to provide that safe space for students that don't otherwise have one here on campus. And that's just another way in which I personally try to be there for any of the other students that need me while they're here.
Hi everyone, I'm Stacy. One thing that I really think about when I think about being foreign with others, obviously it's the community, but it has a lot to do with reflection and spirituality. And it's something that Holy Cross really takes seriously, and gives a space for people to really reflect on their overall life choices and the way that their lives affect other people around them. And one way that I'm able to see this is community-based learning classes that we have at Holy Cross. So what this is, certain classes have a community portion of it where you go out into the community of Worcester and you also do service. And that service has something to do with a course. I took my religion course called Social Ethics. And during that time, I went out into a YMCA program that was for students who come from disadvantaged backgrounds. And during that time, it was just time where we got to just have fun together, do sports, play games, just talk about life and really reflect on how we got where we are. And why it's important to really engage with the community, not only your Holy Cross community, but your Worcester community. And I definitely think that it was really helpful for me to understand not only like those around me, but also myself. And it really reinforced all of my values and my overall identity.
Great, thank you so much. Eddie, can you tell us a little bit about SPUD, Student Programs and Urban Development, this service organization that you're involved with?
Yeah, so the Student Program for Urban Development is actually one of the biggest, I guess, clubs that we do have here on campus. A huge percentage of the college population actually does do some sort of service through this program. Me personally, I was able to volunteer my time at the Salvation Army here in Worcester, in their after school program. So basically what I did is I tutored students after their regular school day. They would come in, I'd help them with their homework. And then after about an hour or so, the program really focused on like student engagement and also movement. So like exercise. So another cool thing that we did was that after they all finished their homework, we all just went to the gymnasium and just started playing basketball, dodgeball, just basically providing that safe space for students after school. In order for their parents to come and get them, like if they needed a bit more time to come pick them up. That's personally what I did, but there's a number of organizations and a number of things that you can do out in the Worcester population through the SPUD program. We actually have a SPUD recruiting night here on campus, in which all of the sites that are under SPUD come and you can basically go out and sign up for them on that recruitment night. So there's definitely like a number of options that you can do when it comes to SPUD and the service within that program.
Great, thank you. And Stacy and Kyle as well, I know that you have both been involved with Spring Break Immersion program through the chaplain's office. Can you both share a little bit more about, what that opportunity was? And I'm particularly interested, we talk about being for and with others. And if you can talk a little bit about sort of the for, you know, and the with, because I think those experiences provide a lot of great opportunity there.
Yeah, so I did mention a little bit about my experience on spring break already, but it is a fantastic program. It is very popular among Holy Cross students, and students are able to go across the United States. There are many programs in the Appalachian region where students will go and help work with the local communities and work with infrastructure. Then there are what they call special sites across the country in places like Chicago, where I was fortunate enough to go, and also in St. Louis and in Kentucky and all these different places. And it's a really great opportunity to both be for other people. You know, quite literally, people are going to these places and working with these organizations to help them out. Like for when we volunteered in food pantries, we were physically helping them out, and students go across the country to help build things and some very concrete things. But also what was really great about my experience personally was the with, that we were with Holy Cross students, and we were able to, every night we spent 2 hours sitting in a circle talking about our days and reflecting. And we were also able to meet a lot of people in the greater Chicago community who had experiences with incarceration, who had experiences in working in restorative justice programs, and how that worked out for them. And it was really great to actually meet these people, because for me personally, before I came to Holy Cross, a lot of the service opportunities that I participated in were pretty straightforward. But my experiences on spring break, it was really amazing to actually meet these people and talk to these people and learn about all these different experiences that people have that really make that kind of work worth it. When you're able to see all these people, all these different experiences, and what works for different people, and how people can tangibly help others. It's a really great experience to not only be for others, but also with others.
So for my spring break immersion trip, I went to Alamosa, Colorado. And for this trip, you go with Holy Cross students that you're not supposed to know beforehand. So before you go on these trips, you put a list of names of people that you know are going to spring break immersion, and they try to pair you up in a group with students who you haven't met before, which is very nice. You're also able to really meet other students within your community that you haven't met yet. And during our time there, we were able to volunteer at a food pantry, at a shelter. And during that time, we were able to sit down and we ate every single day with the people that would come in to the shelter, and like we would serve them, we would sit down and we'd just talk about life, and we'd hear all these amazing stories. And then the next day we would go in and do a different activity. There's this one day that we went to a thrift store where they were also doing donations to the less fortunate. And so we all split up and we were trying to help this thrift store that was really backed up in terms of arranging their clothes and their donations for a lot of the people within the Alamosa community. So between another student and I, we were like taking apart these bins of donation clothes and separating them and everything. And later on that day, we stayed longer than we were supposed to because we weren't done. And we were like, we want to finish this before we head home. And later on, close to closing, a couple came in and they were looking for clothes, and they didn't have any clothes in the sections that were already organized. And we brought in the other student and I, we brought in the bins of clothes that we had separated for hours, and they were able to find clothes that were able to fit them and their children, which was very nice. And aside from that, we also spend like a lot of time within the community, just learning people's names. It's a very small community, so a lot of people know each other. And there was this particular man who was telling me his story on how he wanted to inspire others with his story. And I had told him how I was doing a research paper, something along the lines of on the topic that we were talking about, and he wanted to be in it. And I used his story for my research paper. And he, at the end of it all, he was like, I hope that my story inspires you all to be the wonderful people that you're meant to be. And from there on, I will never forget the stories I learned and the wonderful people that I met, and how I was able to bring back all of these cultures and stories back to Holy Cross's campus and all over Worcester.
Great, thank you so much. It's wonderful information. Darwin, I know that you've had a chance to do a different kind of immersion trip through the chaplain's office internationally. Can you talk a bit about that?
Yeah, so my international immersion trip was actually in Colombia. And it was honestly an amazing experience. I was able to go with a group of students from Holy Cross. Obviously, we had a chaplain as well as a professor who came with us who spoke Spanish. Luckily, I'm fluent in Spanish from growing up in a Spanish household. But but she was there, and we kind of had someone to really allow us to talk to the community, because that was a big part of my immersion trip. Wasn't just kind of going in the community and kind of having a task, but more of going to the community and seeing what the community wanted, and then just helping them achieve their goals. We really learned about kind of the different social justice issues that Colombia faces, the different kind of political regimes they've had that might have made it kind of difficult, and just a lot of kind of what the community is going through face on. We did it through a program that actually focuses on the like different like organizations within the community that we're going to. So we went to 3 different communities. So we went to Bogota, Ibagué, and Planadas. And like part of our immersion trip is like getting to go to these organizations and learning what is done, while also helping them accomplish tasks that they think are important. So we don't just kind of tell them or assume that they don't know what's going on. They're living these situations. They understand very well their circumstances, and they say that this is what we need today. And we kind of do it. One day it was kind of literally helping the students kind of write like literally letters. So the English alphabet is the same as the Spanish one, besides a few letters. So you can teach a child kind of just show them how to write it easily, and that's what we did. We helped the students do that just because we went kind of a little later, so they were still in school, the students. So it was like kind of after school thing when we did it. Like this is just specific. I was there for 10 days, so I did a few things, but just that day we kind of helped them just kind of learn how to do the alphabet, and just like that's something that's really not able to do because of their parents' circumstances, having to work all the time, not being able to like obviously offer that extra help that other students who would be more privileged obviously have. Another one was kind of going to a place that was very I would say is just very kind of disconnected, because Colombia is like a very big country. So there's some places that don't have so much access to, whether it be like, I would say like things that you would have if you're on a coast. So we went to those communities, and one of the biggest things that they wanted was like kind of to redo their recreational center. And that was something that I kind of, luckily, since I speak Spanish, I was just listening to the community speak. They were saying how they feel about the community, how it's so different because of like the political issues that might be going on. And they were just like, we really had this space, and this space isn't up to what we want, so we really want to fix it. And we were like, okay, how can we fix it? We didn't assume that they wanted things in certain places. Everything was off like the humility of us understanding that they know exactly what needs to be done, and all we're here is just to like be like, okay, so this is what you need. Let's just kind of help out with that. So I think that was like the biggest thing of being with people, is just making sure that you come in with a very mindset, that not thinking that you might know what they need, not thinking that you're gonna fix their lives completely. I completely understand that this one experience isn't gonna change their lives forever. If it changes a little bit, that's all I can hope for. But they live longer lives after I just leave, right? So being with people, which I really think is one of the most important parts of service as well, is kind of just being there for them as they need it, and just being with them in the most humble way possible. Because they taught me so much that I could have never learned in the United States. Taught me so much that I'll never forget, and just skills, and just learn that through kind of the service work and international that I did internationally. But being with them was, I think, the best part of the service. Not just being there for them, but being with them. Either it was having a meal with them, whether it was kind of just hearing their stories of what they've been going through. Even the children, you'd be surprised. They like to talk. So me and them would talk for a little bit. Luckily, like I said, I know Spanish, so I was just talking to them. But just hearing those stories, honestly, would never been able if I wasn't there with them. So yeah.
Great, thank you, Darwin. I want to just make a note that the closed captioning is now available, and you can access it by clicking the CC button at the bottom of your screen. And deepest apologies for the delay in getting that going for anyone who needs it. There were a couple quick follow-up questions in the chat. One was about summer opportunities for immersion. And Darwin, I believe yours would have been a summer or May which for us is summer, right? Was your
So
May,
so
June?
there are summer ones that are international. Mine was right before the school year started, so it was in January.
Oh,
But
okay,
I know that Haiti is sometime in the summer, and then also like Cuba was in the summer. So
great, perfect. And for Stacy and Kyle, there was a question about spring break immersion, if you get to choose where you go, or if you're just sort of assigned and head where you're told.
Yeah, so usually the way it works is you identify a couple different places where you would be interested in going. They provide a list of the sites, and usually they give a little bit of overview of the kinds of things that you'll be doing there. And you're usually able to provide a couple different ones where you would be hoping to go to, and based on where you say you might be interested in going, and like Stacy said, the people you know who are participating in the program where they want to go, they try their best to match you to somewhere where you would want to go.
Great. Okay. Thank you so much. So someone asked in the chat, and it's an important question. We're doing a lot of this talking about, being for and with others at a time when it's really difficult to actually be with others. So can you talk about, over the last 8-9 months, how you've been able to keep that spirit alive of being people for and with others, whether it's through student government, multicultural organizations, the chaplain's office, some kind of service, community-based learning. What has it meant, or what does it look like to be a person for and with others, particularly, since March?
I can speak a bit on this one. At least on behalf of my organization, the one that I'm currently running, one thing that we do is I sort of created like a bit of a step by step in order to continue to provide the safe space that the Latinx students need here on campus. So one of the steps is definitely considering the fact that these students are already looking at a lot of screen time throughout the day. So even though this is, I guess, the reality right now in which we do have to speak in this virtual format, we try to provide a space in which we can get everyone just away from the academic life for a little bit, whether it's for half an hour at most. That's something that we take into account. I know personally I've been reached out by my spud again because this tutoring service that I was actually able to do is something that can be carried out virtually. Although of course you'd understand the roadblocks that come with that. But trying to keep a child like that's 8 or 9, 10-year-old engaged virtually for a long period of time. But that's what I've done. My organization, they put on events in which it's open to the entire campus community. People can come in. I know recently we had a Latinx culture show to close out National Latinx Heritage Month, which was a really fun event that we put on. Literally, it lasted about 35 minutes, but it was literally something that everyone told me they needed and wanted and really enjoyed because it got them to focus on something other than academic life. It got them to focus on something other than the problems at home, because we all know not everyone is might have that stable household. So that's something that we've personally done in order to continue to provide that space for others, and just honestly providing a space in which we can all just be with each other.
Just to speak a little bit more about that too. I think another way, like I said, a lot of my trip in Colombia was educating myself and kind of just learning and listening to people's stories. And that's something that can be done no matter where you are or what the circumstances is. So my major is kind of always about learning about other places, being international studies major. So just like one of the classes I'm taking right now is global anti-racism. And I'm always constantly being educated about different areas and how racism impacts them, just because it's not just like, I would say, an American issue. So just kind of educating yourself can always be done. And that's an important focus on when you're thinking about how you might help these communities or might be with and for them. So it's very important to educate yourself before you went there. That was a big thing about Colombia. We actually met once a week before the trip, like the beginning of the school, since it was in January. So this fall semester, we met every week and we had readings and we're learning kind of what was happening there, instead of just going there like, oh, we're gonna just kind of do a service trip, an immersion trip, right? So I think that's a big thing that I've been doing, and I know a lot of other students have been doing with their time, is just really kind of getting educated and really learning, because once this is over, are we gonna kind of actually do the work?
Great, thank you. I want to ask you a question, Michelle. So, of course, you talked about the work that OME does for our students, which is, of course, really important. But, I think, faculty and staff, employees make up a significant part of our population. And we can have students who sort of get it and are involved and understand, but it's so important to have sort of the whole community, doing this work and part of these conversations. And I know that your office does quite a bit of work with and for faculty and staff. So can you just share a little bit about that?
Sure. So much of our programming is focused towards students. I think if we're using the frame around the last 8 months or so, we've seen that faculty and staff have really engaged with our office to do the knowledge building and the awareness building. And so much of our program is based on creating content that people can respond to. And so showing a movie or a documentary on Zoom and watching it together and then discussing our questions or the impact of it. Reading, we've done 5 book clubs since the beginning of June, I believe, and all of them have been focused on race and racism, and how folks can do anti-racist work. And so more broadly, that's our role, right? We want to include faculty and staff in the conversation because faculty and staff, they weren't born that like in their discipline, right? It's not like they came out of their womb and they're like, yay, PhD, right? So they might know a lot about whatever their PhD is in, but if I know a lot about diversity work, I have no idea about physics, none. So if that's true for me, then I make the same assumption for folks who are really good at religious studies. If you're teaching in religious studies, you may have some context of diversity and inclusion work, but that's not your expertise. That's not where you're focusing your attention. And so if we're really connecting it back to a liberal arts education, but also to this idea of mission, then we want to make sure that we're providing ample opportunities for people to connect across difference. So although our focus is much on students and how students are perceiving the campus and how students are living through these times, we want to bring along the faculty and staff who say, I need to do some learning too. This world is becoming different than the world that I grew up in. Let me see what's going on here and let me learn some new terminology. Let me talk to other faculty and staff, but also with students to see how can I learn more about myself, and by learning more about myself, when I'm in the classroom, I can connect with students, right? So I can be of service to students and advocate for all students if I'm learning more by attending programming and attending conversations. I'll also just add that a major role that we are now playing is just visiting courses. So engaging in the conversations that are happening in the academic spaces. So we are joining classrooms by saying, this course is about X topic, right? We're gonna be a part of the conversation today and talk about how we can integrate this. And so it's not just faculty and staff coming our way in our program, it's us joining the classroom and seeing how we can impact those conversations, one conversation and one student at a time. And so that's pretty much how we do the work for and with faculty and staff. We provide opportunities for them so that they can engage, but we also want to be colleagues and be with them while they're developing their own philosophies, pedagogy, and classroom dynamics.
Excellent, thank you. Someone's asking in the chat about opportunities to work with refugees and immigrants. And Eddie, you mentioned that a little bit in your introduction. Can you share a little bit more?
Yeah, so Stacy had also mentioned this thing called CBL, which is community-based learning. So the CBL that I was a part of was actually called the Worcester Transition Program. And it's basically a program in which students that have developmental disabilities that are from foreign countries, they enter this program because they aren't able to gain a high school diploma. So what we do as specifically what I did as part of the service is actually help them create their resume, help them apply for jobs, and help them start to build some of that I guess those social skills that you need in order to really make it out there in the work industry. That's really one really cool thing that I did, and it was really relatable because these students, these kids, they were all like Spanish speaking people, like they didn't speak English, so it was difficult for them, right? And I think it was pretty interesting that specific CBL for me, just because it's something that I didn't even know existed, right? The fact that these programs do exist sort of does put my heart at ease for students that have to deal with these struggles day in and day out, especially coming from countries in which they don't have opportunities to join a work industry like the ones that we have here in the United States. Um, so yeah, that's a little bit of my experience with that. Another thing that I really wanted to add about this piece of Men and Women Forum with Others is the fact that it doesn't end once you leave Holy Cross. So I personally also was a part of a fellowship for the Center of Career Development here on campus, in which fellow Holy Cross alumni who already have their lives worked out, already have their careers, still reach out to students here and offer us the opportunities to offer the opportunities to others, which is a really cool thing. And it just really speaks to the alumni network that we do have here on this campus. And it just really speaks to that mission statement that we hold true even after we graduate. So that's just something I wanted to include.
Stacy, did you want to add anything about CBL community-based learning related to that question?
I personally didn't have anything to do with like transitioning, but my best friend, she was able to do a CBL course, and she was able to teach English to students who had come from different countries as well, who only spoke Spanish or spoke Portuguese. And so she would go once a week to her program, and she would really try to teach these students English and really help them with their transition overall. And she would always come back with these experiences and talking to me about how they were able to understand each other again, like how she was seeing progress within the students who she was tutoring, and how she was very happy about it. And I know I still keep in touch with a lot of the people that I have met during my CBL experience, which is very nice. I know a lot of people even become CBL ambassadors after the experience because they love it so much, and they end up going back into the community and really try to advocate for students and other people to get really involved with the community of Worcester, which is very nice.
And Stacy, while I have you, there's some questions about how do students get involved? So, service and CBL are different things, but how do new students find out about these opportunities or get involved?
Well, I accidentally signed up for my first CBL class, my first semester of freshman year. So while we were doing enrollment, there was this class called social ethics, which sounded so interesting to me. And it was my religion course, and it had a CBL component. I had no idea what that meant, but I saw it had a community-based. I was like, community-based learning. I was like, okay, like maybe like it will be like very hands-on project. And I selected it. And our first day, we had someone from the CBL office come in and really talk to us about what it meant to be part of the CBL course. And then we chose our sites off of a sheet of paper that had to do with our course. And I decided to choose the one which really had me being more interactive with the students who I was going to be with. There were so many programs. I've actually done 2 classes for CBL. I also did one at a nursing home. That class I did choose on purpose after I figured it out the first time. And it's always listed under the class description. So it shouldn't be a surprise. It was just me not reading well, but people tend to do it on purpose, I promise.
I don't know, some believe there are no accidents. There's some questions about advocacy. And I'm sure any of you could answer this question, but questions about sort of opportunities to advocate for, populations that, that sort of need some help, for lack of a better way to say that. And I'm thinking a bit about the student government in particular, and I know that Kyle and Darwin, you're both involved, particularly related to diversity, equity, inclusion work through the SGA. And I wonder if there are those sort of advocacy opportunities that are available to our students.
Yeah, I can talk to that a little bit, because that's really kind of my department. Just because advocacy isn't just kind of uplifting a voice, but like having the voice speak for itself and just be magnified. So basically kind of whatever issue, specifically in student government, like we always host, it's difficult, I want to say. I'm trying to like switch my brain to things now in COVID because I'm a senior and things have been differently in the last 3 years. But I would say like a lot of things is kind of just making sure to like hear what the concerns are. SJ does a lot is just hearing the concerns and putting them out there, whether it be kind of speaking to the professors, speaking to the faculty. Kyle's position is very close to the faculty, so he can really kind of advocate on that end, depending on the academic needs of certain student populations. Mine is kind of just with different administrators, so whether it's working with Michelle's office or speaking to different like offices, kind of just getting those needs. I think advocacy, a big part of it is just listening to see what the issues are. Like I said, I always try to put myself in spaces of different identities that I don't hold so that I can learn how to better be with and for these communities. So I think for advocacy, there's definitely avenues, whether it be part of a student organization like LASSO or BSU, and kind of gathering student voices for those populations. They know what they need and they self-advocate for, and they can come to SJ or OME and kind of get those voices up to administration. And then kind of just also me, like let's say if I know there's an issue, myself putting myself kind of out there. Well, this population of the students are saying that they need this and it's not being kind of met. Like, what are we going to do? And bring up those voices. So I think when it comes to advocacy, there's always a way to kind of talk to administrators. Like as a student, like I always say, I'm like, I go here. I can, if I need to set up a meeting with someone, I'm going to set up a meeting with someone, whether I have to go to someone else, whether it's Michelle and be like, Michelle, I have this issue. What do I, who can solve this for me? Who can I speak to? And, to make sure that this isn't an issue anymore. So I think kind of advocacy can be very self-advocacy. Whether if I see I have a problem, I would say one example of this would be me and another student. We created this with a member actually from OME. We created a space for queer students of color, and kind of just making sure that I saw that as a queer student, I was like, well, there's not really kind of a place where me being a person of color and also being queer can intersect. I'm like, I really need to speak to people who also have this identity. So let's make it, right? I was like, we need to do this. And this was me self-advocating with the other student. And then the space was created, right? It's called Spectrum. And, I saw this lack, and students, I think at Holy Cross really do have the ability to kind of speak for themselves once they know and they learn what they need, and kind of just making sure to speak with people. I think OME does a great job of kind of putting people in the position and kind of connecting students to where they need to be able to advocate. And SJ also does that with we still do have office hours every Friday, just to know, because it's impossible for us to know what a population needs without them telling us or without us listening. So I think that's kind of the biggest thing of advocacy at Holy Cross, is definitely listening and kind of understanding and learning.
Thank you so much. I'm going to close this out tonight with a two-part question, and I would love to hear from all four of you. And you can choose if you'd like to answer one or the other or both of these questions. You are all super impressive and involved and wonderful examples of what it means to be Holy Cross students who are people for and with others. And I imagine that has developed a bit over your time at Holy Cross. Though I'm sure you came to us as wonderful people as well. So the first question is, are there things you've learned or ways you've seen that you've sort of developed in that particular way during your time at Holy Cross? And then also sort of looking forward, have you given thought to, whether your graduation is imminent or it's not for a couple of years, have you given thought to what this means as you go out into the world and you're no longer a student at Holy Cross, whether it's, in an intended career, future schooling, just your general life, what lessons will you take with you, and how do you hope to carry this mission of being people for and with others into your future? So looking back and looking forward, your choice.
So I can address the looking forward part of the question. As a senior who will hopefully be graduating in May, I've started to think a lot about life after Holy Cross. And one of the things that I actually first learned about on my immersion experience is something that's collectively referred to as a year of service. So typically after students finish their undergraduate degree, many students go into these different year of service programs. The most popular among Holy Cross students is something called the Jesuit Volunteer Corps. And I actually first learned about these programs on my immersion trip, where one of the leaders at the site that I was in Chicago actually was participating not in the Jesuit Volunteer Corps, but in another related organization. And I've been doing some research on them, and they have opportunities across disciplines. I'm an economics major, and I'm really interested in economic development. And so I've been researching opportunities for years of service, because I've just been so inspired by the service opportunities that I've been able to participate in at Holy Cross. And I would really like to spend an extended amount of time, like a full year, working in a service related role, to be a person for and with others. And that was really inspired by my time doing service at the college.
Yeah, I'm gonna do the the looking forward one, just because, you know, I have to think about that now. But I would say I definitely think about it, especially with kind of like where I'm looking to like get a job, and also just how I can better serve. I kind of want to go to the West Coast to work, even though I'm from the East Coast. But I think about it kind of, service isn't just an international thing. Yes, I did international immersion, but it can also be very local. And that can mean kind of just engaging with your own community. And I always think about this kind of like in the different communities I'm looking for to work. Like if I get a job somewhere, if like I applied somewhere, I'll look at different kind of opportunities that I have, because I'm only going to be working 5 days out of the week, and like for a certain amount of hours. It's going to leave a lot of time. There's going to be no clubs or no service, like direct service activities like Holy Cross sets up. But that doesn't mean that I have to stop there and kind of not do that, just because I enjoyed it so much at Holy Cross. So I think that's how I kind of look at it, is just localize, like wherever I'm working, and wherever I kind of will be. That doesn't mean that I have to stop doing the work that I was doing at Holy Cross.
Yeah, so like for me, when I think about this question, the first thing that comes to my mind is opportunity, and being able to offer opportunities to others. So like growing up, I didn't really have the opportunities that I am now able to provide for the students or the people here in Worcester. One really cool thing that I actually see a lot is that after people graduate from Holy Cross and they have been involved in all of these programs and activities and service, they actually come back to the school and run offices themselves. Like they run offices that solely focus on this purpose. We had a really great staff member here by the name of Marielle, who's no longer with us, but we still always keep in contact. And especially us, the junior class, who was really, really super close with her. She literally was the example of what service meant to me, because we would have these sit downs and these talks, and she would just help me understand my identity, my character, and how I'm going to use all of this even after I graduate. And she was basically one of the reasons as to why I've chosen to dedicate my life to service, even after I graduate, along with, of course, all of my other mentors here on this campus. But yeah, that's just what I want to do after this is all over. I want to continue to offer opportunities that I never had growing up to the people who feel like they don't have it, but they will, just because I'm able to provide as much as I can.
So during my time here so far, I'm only a second year, so I have a lot to go still, but I've learned so much from Holy Cross so far. It's definitely helped shape my identity overall, like trying to find myself culturally, just trying to like find myself as a student, trying to find myself in every aspect, trying to really understand how I fit into this world in the best of ways so I can give back to the community. And because of this, because of OME, because of the Latin American Student Organization, LASSO, because of all these great events, I've definitely considered going into higher ed afterwards, because of all the opportunities, like Eddie was saying, like all the opportunities that I've been given at Holy Cross that I never knew that were available to me. And I'm sure there are a lot of people, even at different colleges, who are not very aware of the opportunities that they have. I want to be there for them someday. I really want to give back to the community. And the alumni network here is so strong. Like my mentor, she was an alumni here. She graduated like 5 years ago. She came back because she really wants to help the students here, and she tries to guide students and she's into nonprofits now, and she's considered going into higher ed, and overall just being able to have all these ties to each other, to Holy Cross. Like Holy Cross is a community that really ties in so many kinds of people together, and that's something that I'll forever take with me.
Excellent. Michelle, Darwin, Kyle, Stacy, Eddie, I want to offer an enormous thank you for your participation tonight. You've been working double duty, answering questions live and in the chat. You did a great job. Thank you so much. I also want to thank all of our attendees for your questions and attention. This is the final week for our Fall Open House webinar series. As I mentioned earlier, all of the sessions are available, including this one, which will be available shortly on our website. So if you loved it and you want to watch it again, tune right in. Though we are going to call it a night now, we hope this will be the beginning of the conversation. So keep the questions coming. We hope you had a wonderful week. Have a wonderful week. Stay safe. Keep the questions coming and be in touch.